The first thing she noticed was not the storm. It was the smell of diesel, wet pine, and old leather inside the cab of the truck. Vanessa Hart sat in the passenger seat with mud on the hem of her cream dress, rainwater dripping from her hair onto a borrowed wool blanket, and both hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold 5 minutes after he gave it to her. Half an hour earlier, her silver Mercedes had been sitting sideways in a flooded mountain road, headlights dying one by one under brown water. 3 hours earlier, she had laughed at the man beside her. Not loudly. Not cruelly enough to call it cruel if someone important asked later. Just enough. Enough for his little boy to hear. Enough for the people around her to smile. Enough for her to say, in the polished voice she used when she wanted an insult to sound like a joke, "I suppose some people still believe a truck this old counts as reliable transportation." Now that same old truck was the only reason she was alive. The man driving it did not mention that. He did not look at her. His hand stayed steady on the wheel as the road disappeared and reappeared underwater. On the dashboard, carved into the dark wood trim by a hand that must have been shaking once, was one word. "Mara!" Vanessa stared at it. The truck radio cracked with static. A woman's voice cut through the storm. "Reed, we have 3 people trapped at the South Overlook. 1 child. Vehicle against the guardrail. County units can't cross Miller Creek." The man at the wheel reached for the radio. "Copy. I'm 5 minutes out." Vanessa turned toward him. "Who are you?" He did not look away from the road. "Tonight?" he said. "Just the man with the truck." 6 hours earlier. Vanessa Hart had been standing beneath the glass canopy of the Ridgeview Mountain Lodge, smiling for a photographer she did not like and pretending she wanted to be there. Hartwell Development was announcing its new luxury resort project in western North Carolina. 48 acres, 32 private cabins, a spa built into the hillside, a restaurant with a view of the Blue Ridge that the marketing team described as untouched, though Vanessa knew very well that untouched land had a way of becoming very touched once investors arrived. She was the company's chief operating officer. Her father had founded Hartwell Development 31 years earlier. He had built neighborhoods, shopping centers, office parks, and resort properties from Georgia to Virginia. When he stepped back after his second heart surgery, Vanessa took the operational seat. People assumed she had inherited power easily. They did not see the years she had spent proving to rooms full of men that she could read a pro forma faster than they could lie through one. But success had trained something sharp into her. Efficiency. Distance. A belief that if something looked worn out, it probably was. That belief was about to cost her more than pride. The charity reception began at 4. Hartwell had invited local business owners, county officials, rescue volunteers, hospital donors, and the press. It was supposed to make the resort feel like a community partnership, not an invasion. Vanessa stood near a display board showing the future lodge expansion while her project director, Daniel Pike, talked too loudly beside her. Daniel was 42, handsome in the way expensive gym memberships make men handsome, and very good at making other people's work sound like his instincts. He leaned toward Vanessa and nodded toward the lower parking lot. "Look at that thing." She followed his gaze. A faded green Ford pickup had just pulled in beside the catering vans. It was old, older than it needed to be. Dented along one side, mud on the tires. Winch mounted to the front bumper, a rack of equipment in the bed covered by a black tarp. A man stepped out wearing a dark flannel shirt, work boots, and a weathered brown jacket. He came around to the passenger side and lifted a boy down from the cab. The boy was small, maybe 7, with dark hair sticking up in the back and a blue raincoat folded under one arm. He held a paper plate carefully with both hands, as if whatever was on it mattered. A woman in a volunteer vest called from the lodge doors. "Eli, you found the brownies?" The boy lifted the plate proudly. The man smiled. "Not much. Just enough for the boy to see it." Daniel chuckled. "Local color." Vanessa should have ignored him. Instead, she let the old version of herself answer. "The truck or the brownies?" Daniel laughed. A county commissioner nearby smiled. The man by the truck heard. His son heard, too. The boy looked at Vanessa with eyes too serious for a child. The man placed one hand lightly on the boy's shoulder. He did not say anything. That was her first mistake. The second came 10 minutes later at the silent auction table. The man reached for the same pen Vanessa did. He pulled his hand back first. "Go ahead," he said. His voice was low. "Calm." Vanessa wrote her bid on a weekend cabin package she did not want. Daniel drifted behind her. "Careful," he said. "If he wins, he might tow it home." The man's jaw moved once. His son stood beside him, holding the brownie plate. The boy looked down. Vanessa felt something small and uncomfortable press under her ribs. She did what people like her often do when shame arrives too early. She stepped away from it. At 5:30, the sky changed. The mountains have a way of warning people who know how to read them. Vanessa did not. She saw clouds. The man in the brown jacket saw pressure, wind direction, the color of the lower tree line, and the way crows moved low instead of high. His name was Luke Reed. He was 39 years old. A single father, a mechanic by weekday, a volunteer rescue coordinator whenever the county radio called, and before any of that, before grief folded his life into something smaller, he had spent 11 years in Coast Guard aviation search and rescue. His son, Eli, knew all of that. Most people did not. Luke preferred it that way. At 6:05, Luke stood outside by the truck with his phone open to a weather radar model, watching a line of storms that had been predicted to pass north turn sharply into the valley. Eli was eating his second brownie. "Dad," he said. "Yeah?" "Are you listening to the sky again?" Luke looked at the clouds. "Trying to... Is it saying bad words?" "Not yet." "But soon?" Luke smiled. "Probably soon." He called his neighbor, Nora Bell. "Nora, can Eli stay at your place tonight if this turns?" "How bad?" "Fast water by 8 if the creek jumps the culvert." "Bring him now." Luke crouched and zipped Eli's raincoat. "You remember the rules?" "Stay with Nora. Charge my tablet. Do not tell Mister. Caps's chili tastes like smoke even if it does." "And?" Eli looked toward the lodge doors. People are not their trucks. Luke paused. He looked at his son. No, he said quietly. They're not. By 7:40, the reception had moved into dinner. Rain hit the lodge windows in hard silver sheets. Daniel ordered another bottle of wine for the investor table. Vanessa's phone buzzed 3 times in a row. The first message was from her assistant, Priya. We need to talk tonight. It's about Daniel and the county permits. The second was from her father. Don't sign anything from Pike before I see it. The third was a flood alert. Daniel glanced at her screen. Ignore it, he said. The resort road is above grade. I need to drive back to Asheville. In this? I have a call at 9. He smiled. You have a control problem, Vanessa. She took her coat from the back of the chair. No, I have a company. That sentence would have felt powerful if she had not been wrong about the road. The navigation app rerouted her away from a closed highway. It sent her down Miller Creek Road. A narrow 2-lane cut between a steep hillside and a creek that had become something larger than a creek in the dark. At 8:18, water crossed the road. At 8:21, her Mercedes lost traction. At 8:23, the rear wheels slid into the ditch. At 8:25, the engine died. She stepped out into water up to her calves. Rain slapped her face so hard she could barely open her eyes. Her phone showed 1 bar. Then none. She climbed onto the hood and pressed the emergency call button until her fingers hurt. Headlights appeared through the rain. Old headlights. High and yellow. The green Ford stopped beside her car like it had done this exact thing before. Luke Reed leaned across the passenger seat and shoved the door open. Step down toward my voice, he said. I can't see the road. That's why you step toward my voice. My car. Your car is done arguing for tonight. Move! Something in his tone cut through panic. She slid from the hood. Water pushed her knees sideways. A hand caught her wrist. Strong. Fast. Not rough. She stumbled into the cab, breathless and shaking. Only when the door slammed shut did she recognize him. The man from the reception? The truck she had mocked. The son who had heard her. Luke put the truck in low gear. Vanessa opened her mouth. No apology came out. Not because she did not owe one. Because fear had taken up too much space. The radio cracked. Reed, South Overlook, 3 trapped, 1 child. Luke answered. Copy, 5 out. Vanessa looked at him. You are going there now? Yes. Shouldn't you take me somewhere safe first? He glanced at her for the first time. His eyes were gray, tired, completely awake. There's a church on the ridge. I can leave you there, or you can sit tight and stay out of the way. The words were not cruel. They were accurate. Vanessa thought of the boy in the parking lot. She thought of the way the water had lifted her car as if money weighed nothing. I'll stay out of the way, she said. Luke nodded. They reached the South Overlook at 8:34. A minivan had been pushed against the guardrail. A young mother stood on the road screaming into the rain. Her husband was trapped in the driver's seat with one leg pinned, and their daughter was in the back, crying so hard the sound barely came out. Luke moved like the storm had slowed down around him. He grabbed a rescue bag from behind the seat, clipped a line to the truck frame, and tossed Vanessa a flashlight. "Point this where I tell you." "I don't know how to—" "Point the light? That's enough." So she did. For 22 minutes. Vanessa held the flashlight while Luke broke the rear window, crawled halfway into the minivan, cut the child's seat belt, and passed the little girl out to her mother. Then he went back for the father. Water hit his shoulders. Glass cut his forearm. He did not slow down. When the man finally came free, Luke and the mother carried him to the Ford. Vanessa wrapped the child in her own coat. The girl clung to her. Vanessa did not know what to say, so she said nothing. The girl stopped crying anyway. By 9:20, the church on the ridge had become a shelter. People arrived soaked, bleeding, frightened, carrying pets, medicine bags, phone chargers, and children wrapped in blankets. Luke left again. Then again. Then again. Each time, Vanessa expected him not to come back. Each time, the old truck returned through the rain with more people inside. At 11:05, the county dispatcher called about 2 elderly sisters trapped in a house near the creek bend. At 11:40, Luke drove through water that rose almost to the doors. At midnight, Vanessa was in the back seat holding an oxygen tank steady, while one of the sisters whispered the Lord's Prayer and the other complained that her slippers were missing. At 12:30, the storm line moved east. At 1:10, Luke stopped outside a gas station that had become an unofficial command post. A woman in a red jacket ran out with coffee. "Commander Reed," she said. "We've got cots set up." Vanessa turned. "Commander." Luke took the coffee. "Civilian now, Marcy." "Not tonight." He did not argue. At 2:15, Eli arrived at the station with Nora Bell, wrapped in a blanket and half asleep. The moment he saw his father, he ran. Luke caught him and held him with both arms. For the first time that night, his face changed. The rescuer disappeared. The father remained. Eli looked over his father's shoulder and saw Vanessa. "You were the lady by the truck," he said. Vanessa swallowed. "Yes." "You laughed." The station went quiet in the way small rooms do when children tell the truth. Luke set Eli down. "Eli—" "No," Vanessa said. She crouched so she was closer to the boy's height. "I did laugh," she said, "and I was wrong. I am sorry." Eli studied her. Then he looked at the old Ford outside the window. "It saved people." "Yes," Vanessa said. "It did." He considered this. Dad says old things work if someone keeps caring for them. Vanessa looked at Luke. He looked away. At 6:30 in the morning, Vanessa's phone finally found service. 39 missed calls. 15 messages. The first was from Daniel Pike. "Emergency board call at 9. We need to discuss your conduct and project delays." The second was from Priya. "Do not join the board call until you see me. I have documents. It's bigger than permits." Vanessa borrowed a jacket from the church donation box, took a ride back toward Asheville with Nora, and arrived at Hartwell Development at 8:42 with dried mud on her shoes. Priya waited in the small conference room. She looked like someone who had not slept. On the table was a folder thick enough to change a career. For 6 months, Priya said, Daniel has been routing environmental mitigation payments through a subcontractor controlled by his cousin. The county reports were altered. The hillside drainage numbers are false. I copied the emails before he deleted them. Vanessa sat down. Her skin went cold in a way that had nothing to do with rain. How much? 8.7 million so far. But the bigger issue is liability. If construction starts on the current plan, the first major storm could put half the lower access road underwater. Vanessa thought of Miller Creek Road. The water over her Mercedes. Luke's hands on the wheel. The old truck pushing through a world her company had put on a slide and called manageable. Who else knows? Your father. My attorney, and now you. At 9 o'clock, Daniel opened the emergency board call with a performance. He said Vanessa had abandoned a key investor dinner. He said she had driven into a flood warning and become unreachable. He said her judgment was becoming a risk to the Ridgeview project. Vanessa listened. For once, she did not interrupt. When he finished, she said, Priya, please share your screen. Daniel's expression changed before the first document appeared. That was when Vanessa knew. The evidence came one page at a time. Invoices, emails, altered drainage reports, subcontractor transfers. A deleted message from Daniel that read, Keep Vanessa off the county call until signatures are final. Her father, Richard Hart, joined the call without video. He spoke only once. Daniel, you are suspended effective immediately. The board vote took 4 minutes. Daniel was removed from the project pending investigation. The Ridgeview expansion was paused. Hartwell Development notified county officials and opened an independent review. For the first time since taking the COO role, Vanessa did something her team did not expect. She canceled the investor press release and issued a community safety statement instead. No Polish. No spin. No beautiful language hiding ugly facts. Just accountability. That evening, she drove a borrowed SUV back to Black Mountain. Luke's house was small, cedar-sided, with a porch light glowing against the early dark. The old Ford sat in the driveway. Same dents. Same mud. Same quiet authority. Eli opened the door before she knocked. Dad, he called. The apology lady is here. Vanessa closed her eyes. Fair. Luke came to the door, drying his hands on a towel. You found your way. This time I asked someone who knew the roads. He almost smiled. She held out an envelope. What is that? A pledge. Hartwell Development is funding 2 mobile flood response units for the county volunteer network. No branding beyond what the teams choose. No press event unless they ask for one. Luke did not take it immediately. Why? Because last night I saw the difference between looking prepared and being prepared. He took the envelope. His thumb brushed the corner. There's a condition, she said. His expression closed. The first unit should be named Mara. He went very still. I saw it on your dashboard, she said. I asked Nora. She told me only that it was not her story to tell. So if I am wrong, tear up the pledge. For a long moment, only the trees moved. Then Luke folded the envelope carefully. My wife, he said. Vanessa nodded once. I'm sorry. She died 8 years ago. Flood response. Not here. Louisiana. I kept the truck because it was the last one she signed off on. Eli stood behind him, quiet. Vanessa looked at the boy. I was wrong about your dad, she said. Eli nodded. Yes. Luke looked down. Eli, she was. Vanessa almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was true. Weeks passed. Daniel Pike was indicted for fraud and obstruction. Priya became Hartwell's Director of Compliance and Community Risk. The Ridgeview project was redesigned with local flood engineers, volunteer coordinators, and county emergency planners at the table. Vanessa showed up to every meeting. At first, people assumed it was damage control. Then she kept showing up after the cameras stopped. Saturday coffee with Luke and Eli became a habit. Then Sunday breakfast. Then Wednesday evenings when Eli had science club and needed someone to cheer for a baking soda volcano that did not erupt as planned. Luke did not become easy. He was quiet. Careful. A man who had already lost the person who knew how to read his silence. But he let Vanessa learn slowly. He showed her the garage behind the house where he repaired rescue equipment for teams that could not afford replacements. He showed her maps marked with roads that flooded first. He showed her how to read a creek gauge. Eli showed her how to make grilled cheese without burning one side and calling it rustic. In January, the county held a small ceremony at the volunteer station. No stage, no orchestra, just coffee, folding chairs, and 2 new response vehicles parked beside the old Ford. The first one had Mara painted on the side in small navy letters. Luke stood with his hands in his jacket pockets. Vanessa stood beside him. Eli stood between them, holding a paper cup of cocoa. The county director thanked Hartwell Development. Vanessa stepped to the microphone. She had prepared a speech. She did not use it. 4 months ago, she said, I thought value was something you could see from the outside. A building, a car, a title, a number on a proposal. She looked at the old Ford. I was wrong. No one moved. The people who keep communities alive are often the people we look past first. Mechanics, volunteers, dispatchers, neighbors with old trucks and better judgment than any executive in a boardroom. Luke looked down. Eli leaned against his side. Vanessa finished. So these vehicles are not a donation from a company that knows better. They are an apology from a company that is learning to listen. Afterward, as people gathered around the new trucks, Eli tugged Vanessa's sleeve. You can sit in the front seat now, he said. Of which truck? He pointed to the old Ford. That one. Luke heard. He did not object. Vanessa climbed into the passenger seat. The same seat where she had sat shaking in the storm. This time she was dry. This time, she was not afraid of the road. Luke started the engine. Eli climbed into the middle. The old truck rolled out of the station lot and turned toward the mountain road. The late winter sun stretched across the dashboard, catching the carved name in the wood. Mara! Vanessa looked at it, then at Luke, then at the boy leaning against his father's shoulder. She understood then that some people do not need new things to prove their worth. Some people carry their value in what they keep running. A truck. A promise. A child's trust. A community's safety. A heart that still answers the radio when the storm comes. And if you had been in that parking lot, watching an old truck pull in beside luxury cars, would you have seen what Vanessa missed? Would you have laughed? Would you have looked away? Or would you have wondered what kind of man keeps a machine alive long after everyone else has stopped believing in it? Tell me in the comments. Because sometimes the thing people mock at 4 in the afternoon is the only thing that can save them by midnight.